Kate's in the Kitchen, and you're invited too. I'm Kate, and this is my kitchen. I think one of the most intimidating things for a new cook is to watch a lot of the cooking shows on television, because then you start feeling that pressure that everything's got to be fancy and plated beautifully and expensive ingredients and just over the top. Absolutely not true. So for a beginning cook, one of the basics and easiest ways to have success is to start by making soup. I go to the grocery store at least once a week, and I get a lot of fresh vegetables, herbs, fruits. But then later in the week, I try to make a point of going back into that produce drawer and seeing what's in there and what can I make with what I got left over. And that's what we're gonna do today. So I did have some carrots. I love carrots in my soup, so I got about 3 to 4 carrots peeled in large chunks. I've got about a half a cup of diced onion and a little bit less of celery. And then for my seasoning, I've got a little bit of ground sage, some dried basil because I ran out of fresh, some fresh thyme, fresh oregano, and 1 to 2 cloves of garlic minced fine, some pepper of course. I've got some orzo, I had that in the pantry. Normally I make this soup with tortellini, but I didn't have any, so it's going to be orzo. Orzo is an Italian pasta with very fine, almost grains. It looks like rice. I have a half a jar of passata left, so that's about 12 ounces. In the freezer I had 1 quart of homemade chicken stock, but I don't think that's going to be enough, so I'm going to supplement it. And then I've got some frozen peas and 1 chicken breast out of the freezer that I diced up. I'm going to start by sauteing my onions in some olive oil. I've got the pan on medium. And I just want to saute those until they start to get soft. They do not need to be browned. I'm going to add my spices next. This will bloom the spices or bring out even more flavor. And again, just about a minute just to wake those spices up a little. And once the soup is part way done, you can taste this and see if you want to add more of any of these. I always start with less because especially rosemary and sage are very strong and you don't want to overpower. So, on to the next step. I'm going to add the carrots because they're going to take the longest to cook of everything we're putting in here. I'm going to go ahead and add my stock. And if you've been watching my YouTube channel, you know I don't like to waste, so I actually put a little water into that bottle, put the lid on, shook it up, and got out all the extra tomato. You can do a lot of things with this basic recipe by changing up what you put in it. You could put in green beans. I didn't have any today, so I didn't. You could put in rice or barley. You could put in greens like kale or spinach. You could put in some spinach and beans, and then you'd have more along of a minestrone. But I love the carrots and the chicken and peas. So I'm going to let this come up to a boil. If I were cooking this for tomorrow, I would cook this right here until the carrots are almost done, and then I would let it cool and put it in the fridge. Tomorrow, I would warm it up. I would put in the chicken, the frozen peas, and the celery. The chicken, because I don't want it to overcook, and the peas, being frozen, only need a couple of minutes really just to heat. And the celery, I want it still to have some texture. I don't like it mushy, so I would add that towards the end too. But since we're going to eat this tonight, as soon as the carrots are just about done, I'm going to add the celery, the orzo, the chicken, and the peas. This is the time also to add a little bit of salt and pepper. I start with a little. I can always add more later. There is no sodium in the chicken stock I use, so I definitely need to add a little. And there's also no sodium in the tomato passata. but I don't like things overly salty. So a little salt, a little pepper, let those carrots cook, and then we'll give it a taste. The beauty of this soup is that you can combine fresh ingredients like vegetables and herbs with frozen ingredients like our peas or the canned chicken stock. You can adjust the level of spiciness. You can make it more tomatoey by adding more passata or more chicken broth forward by adding more of that. So it's a very versatile recipe and it freezes very well. Two essentials for this soup is fresh ground black pepper and a couple of bay leaves. Bay leaves bring a depth of flavor to soups and stews that is hard to achieve with any other herb or spice. So I'm going to throw these in now and I will fish them out before I add the last ingredients. The carrots are getting tender, so I'm going to add the rest of the ingredients. I've got our cubed chicken. And that's just going to poach right in the soup broth. I've got about a cup of frozen peas and my celery. And I'm just going to mix that up. And I'm going to fish out my bay leaves. They usually float up to the top. You can, there we go. I've got about a half a cup of orzo that will expand. And you may think that the soup looks a little thin, a little watery, but the orzo and the chicken are both going to soak up some of that water. And in the about 9 minutes it'll take the orzo to cook. The carrots will be done, the chicken will be done, the peas will be heated through, celery will be there, time to eat. It's been 9 minutes. I'm going to give this a taste, both for seasoning but also to make sure that orzo is done. The orzo is done, the carrots are done. The celery is just the way I like it. It's still got some body, but it definitely needs more salt. And I will serve this with some crusty bread, maybe a glass of wine, and I'm sure for my husband a little Parmesan cheese on the top.